What was the first red flag you ignored in your worst relationship? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Dismissive comments about my interests seemed minor until they became a pattern. I wore dresses a lot and liked the color pink. I was always told that was too girly. Even though I'm a girl, I was meant to think badly about liking this color. I started dating a high school best friend, and he told me I don't like cute things, while also telling me how cute he thought I was and how he liked bending down to kiss me. It was confusing. He didn't like girls who wore dresses or were hyper-feminine, which I am both. He didn't like being romantic and made fun of me when I kept flowers he gifted me. Being dismissive or even ridiculing things is such a huge red flag. Story 2. About 2 weeks into the relationship, he spent 30 minutes telling me how absolute garbage he thought my favorite band was. I got upset and he said, "Well, I'm not making fun of you, just this band." He then proceeded to mock me for literally everything I liked and did for the next 2 years. My taste in music, my favorite shows, my hobbies, what I like to eat, what I read, what I wore, my friends, my family. He once literally turned me picking a bagel for breakfast into a screaming match about how I only eat gross and how I do it on purpose to upset him. I had no idea he didn't like bagels. It turns out it was never about the bagel or the music. He was just a controlling and abusive nightmare and was taking his bad day out on me. I left him after he physically assaulted me. I wish my self-esteem had been good enough for me to get out of there sooner. I still have PTSD over it all. Story 3. On our first date, he asked me out for dinner and a movie. We went to the movie first, and by the time we got to the restaurant, it was late. Because he'd asked me out to dinner, I hadn't eaten beforehand and was absolutely starving. But when I said I was going to order a burger, he told me that it was too late for dinner. I was only allowed dessert. Stupid, young, naive me should have seen the red flags right then. But since he was paying, I didn't argue. And because my family thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, it led to a horrible marriage to an abusive control freak. Thankfully, he's been my ex far longer than he was my boyfriend or husband. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Story 4. When they brushed off my boundaries like they were suggestions. In actuality, I have so many questions. Did the parents have like the exact same poop schedule and only one bathroom in the house, and decided it was easier to just install a second toilet rather than a whole second bathroom? Was the house like that when they bought it? Did they just kinda lean into the codependent pooping lifestyle because of the bathroom design? Or has co-pooping always been their thing and they intentionally sought out a home with a double toilet bathroom? Does that mean there are more CO poopers out there, just walking around in the world disappointed every time they have to poop alone? I'm flabbergasted. Story 5. Even though they were too busy to respond to texts, they managed to spend the entire day posting on social media. I think there's a blurry line here. My boyfriend texts me every day, usually throughout the day, heavily in the evening, unless we're together. But sometimes he'll say he's going to bed, but still show up on social media. It doesn't hurt my feelings. It just means he's winding down and doesn't have the energy to keep chatting all night, but he can still scroll his feed for a bit. Occasionally that'll happen during the day for a few hours, but he's usually also at work and things are hectic. I just assume he has too much on his plate to converse, but might have a few minutes to doom scroll or whatever and distract himself. I don't need constant attention or contact to stay secure and happy in our relationship. But sure, if he did this more often than not, I probably would have lost interest or felt like he wasn't invested or interested. There has to be a balance, especially in the early days of dating. Story 6. Cheated on her boyfriend with me. It was in college. I worked with her and her boyfriend at a campus job most of one school year and over the summer. He was middle class enough to not get much financial aid, but not enough his family could pay. So he decided to take a year off to work full-time, living at home in a different state with his parents. She pivoted to me rather quickly, and within a week of classes starting, she came over one night and we had sex. She confessed the next day. They split up after a week of distraught phone calls. Did I wise up and walk away? Of course not. I got completely attached and was heartbroken when she branched to someone else after a year. She didn't cheat with the next guy. She cheated with an ex from HS one weekend when she went to visit her mom. In retrospect, I think she wanted me to dump her so she'd be free to go to the next guy guilt-free. But my dumb ass stuck around another couple weeks until she dumped me. Story 7. Mine happened on the very first date. He said he was late because he was having trouble finding parking. He later told me he actually walked to the place from his nearby apartment. Sure, we all make innocuous white lies, but all he did was lie the entire relationship. Honestly, I am currently dating someone who tells these white lies all the time to avoid having to be honest about forgetting something or not being organized, and it drives me mad. I honestly don't see the relationship lasting much longer. I once asked him if he fed our cats dinner. I had been out for the night, and he said yes. I noticed not long after his lie that was impossible. Not only were the cats both angrily meowing out of hunger, but there was no evidence of their empty wet food containers anywhere in the house. I had already taken out the garbage and recycling before I left the house. Not much trust remains, since situations like this have only continued over the last year. Story 8. He threw an absolute fit at the quality of hummus in a Lebanese restaurant. Threw food around the table, yelled at the poor waitress, then stormed out without paying. Then we went to a pub and he was asked to take off his hat, and oh dear Lord, was that a mistake. I was recovering from an abusive relationship, so this guy was differently. Bibad, Tatich, was apparently okay? I eventually had to block him, and his many alts, after he accused me of abuse and threatened to call the police. He had read The Ethical Slut, and decided that he was poly, and that I had abused him through mutually agreeable monogamy. I now have a good therapist, and self-esteem. Story 9. Lack of car for his younger brother. The first time I slept over and we went to pick up breakfast for us and his younger brother. We didn't realize they messed up his brother's order. They legit gave us an untoasted McMuffin, nothing else. It was literally a 2 minutes drive, so I insisted we go back quickly as we just pulled into the driveway. He refused, didn't even offer to give his younger brother his order instead, and got mad when I offered mine up. Told his brother to deal with it, and I got in my car and drove to get the right order for his brother. I didn't mind as it was a 2-minute drive, and I didn't want him eating a plain untoasted McMuffin, plus we were left to take care of him since their parents were out of town for business. Story 10. It was a very short relationship, but early on we were with his folks and standing around the kitchen. His dad was headed to the store. He asked his dad what he was going to the store for, and his dad was like, "Oh, some things, milk, bread, I'll probably pick up something for dinner," in the most average and normal tone of voice. I nod. The guy I was seeing explodes and goes, "I was just asking." My head spun around. I was so confused. How could anyone have interpreted his dad's calm, nonchalant grocery list as a personal attack? In hindsight, how unpaused his dad seemed should have indicated this wasn't a rare occurrence. Story 11. Everything I liked and enjoyed, he would make fun of me and take the piss. I was young and had never had a relationship before. I was very much in love with him too. I felt like I was sad and pathetic. So I stopped doing what I loved and wouldn't tell him anything. I'm 29 now and never been in another relationship, as it seriously changed me. I'm getting back to myself. I know 10 years is a long time, but I'm accepting that now. I now do what I love. I read, I write, I paint, I watercolor. I am happy and content again. I feel like I've got myself back. It took years for me to accept myself again because of this boy. I remember he made me go on a drugs run because he said, "No one will think you have anything and you'll be fine. Just go get it and come to my work." When I did that for him, he said, "Thank God you're a nerd." I was stupid and stayed with him. He used to cry after sex and say how good I was, and I used to be so confused. He ended it by cheating on me and telling me, "You look nothing like the girls I want to at work." It changed me. I'm now a single 29-year-old, trying to get by in life and regain myself and my happiness. Story 12. When she started criticizing me over trivial things, cooking, cleaning, anything I did was wrong or not right by her. I'm pretty laid back and easy to get along with, but she would just keep pushing my buttons until I would be at my limit and I would blow up and point out her flaws. Then she would be a different person for about a month. Then she'd just start picking at me again until I reached my limit again. This cycle went on for 3 years, and then I realized she wanted to argue and fight with someone. The last time we had our limit, I didn't blow up. I just calmly told her that I would save her a lot of breath. Don't speak to me unless I do something right. That way I will just assume everything I do is wrong. I moved out the next day, and she called me and asked if I was gone for good, and I said, "Skippy." I married my wife 5 years later and found out she had been calling my mother trying to get in touch with me. Every couple weeks. 5 years. Story 13. Rage. Sudden outburst of rage. I knew my ex would have outbursts because we were friends for over 10 years before we got together. I fell victim once, but I realized where I was wrong in the situation. Anyway, once we got together, the outbursts were incredibly frequent. The one that made me realize how awful life would be was when we'd gone to his parents for the day, and I took his workbook bag inside. He got upset with me despite my reasoning of the laptop's components possibly melting if it had stayed in the truck. It was 100 degrees outside. When we were leaving, we left in a hurry, and I asked if he'd grabbed his workbook bag because I hadn't. We were less than 10 minutes down the road. He was furious. He went into a tangent about how I shouldn't have brought it in. Instances such as that became more frequent as time went on. He slowly destroyed my self-worth. He'd chastise me for trying to help. Every single time. So I stopped. I don't know how not helping got him to not have outbursts, but it somehow did. Story 14. My first husband was physically abusive and controlling. The first red flag that I can remember was when I went to the gym with a female friend of mine. After we were done at the gym, we both got in our own cars and drove to our homes. I lived 15 miles away and my phone was blowing up the whole drive home. It was my then boyfriend, so I didn't answer it, because I knew I was on my way home anyway. Well, he thought I was cheating on him. Apparently someone saw me, we lived in a small town, and told my boyfriend that I was hanging out with another guy. He said his informant told him that I went to talk to a guy. He got in my car, and we drove away. I didn't even unlock my passenger door. My friend did not come to talk to me in my car before we left. None of what was seen was true. But we got into a huge argument over it. He wouldn't even tell me who told him that they saw me. Nothing I could say would prove my innocence. If he was still alive today, then he would probably still think that I cheated on him that day. That kind of thing happened constantly throughout our marriage. I don't think I'll ever know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that he was the one cheating on me for the duration of our relationship. Story 15. It was when she asked me to choose a pair of earrings from her collection for her to wear for some event. Thinking nothing of it, I picked a pair I liked and thought would look great for that occasion. Out of the blue, her mood changed. Soon she revealed that she was mad at me because the earrings I selected didn't match her outfit. Why did this trigger anger? And why did she even ask me for my opinion in the first place? Turned out this was just one of myriad unpredictable buttons that would send her into disproportionate anger or a deep funk. And unlike this time, I usually had no idea what I said, didn't say, or didn't do to spark such reactions. Silly me suffered her inexplicable bouts of anger for 3 more years. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your those in the comment below.